There's a variety of preferences that you can configure inside of InDesign to suit the needs of a particular project or your working style. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about all the preferences in great detail, but as we talk more and more about InDesign, if we need to make a change to the preferences, we certainly will. But there are a few that I'd like to show you right out of the gate because it can make an immediate impact in how you work with InDesign. In order to access the Preferences dialog box, you have to come up to the InDesign menu. If you're on the Windows side, you would go to the Edit menu, and from there, you can choose Preferences. Now, you can select General, which will open up the Preferences dialog box, pre-selected to the General category. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Command-K or Control-K on Windows. It just so happens that I want to show you some options for configuring the interface. So I'm going to come over and choose Interface from this submenu. When you select that command, it will open up the Preferences dialog box with the Interface category pre-selected. Now, the first thing that I want to show you are the options associated with the appearance. New in InDesign CC is a color theme, so InDesign closely matches Adobe's other applications like Photoshop and Illustrator. Now, there's a menu of predefined themes. There's Light, which is set to 100%. Then there's Medium Light, which is 67%. Light and Medium Light closely resembles earlier versions of InDesign. Then we have Medium Dark, which is the default. And then we have Dark, which is set to 0%. You can even customize the percentage by plugging in a value here, or you can drag this slider to the percentage value. I'm going to leave it set to the default of Medium Dark. You can also match the pasteboard to the theme color. What that means is the pasteboard will match the theme color. If you deselect this, the pasteboard will be white. An option that you may consider using is Auto Collapse Icon Panels. Right now it's deselected, but if you select it and come over and click OK, if you expand one of these panels and then click away from it, it will automatically collapse for you. Again, that's a personal preference. If you like that behavior, leave that option selected. Otherwise, keep it deselected. Before we go back into the Preferences dialog box, I just want to point out that there is a difference between going into the Preferences dialog box without a document open and going into the Preferences dialog box with a document open. Some of the preferences in the Preferences dialog box can be document specific, meaning if you do have a document open and you go into the preferences and change something like the unit of measurement, that would then be considered specific to the document that you currently have open. So if you want InDesign to change globally, make sure you open up the Preferences dialog box without a document open. It's not to say that one way is the right way and the other way is the wrong way. You just need to be aware of that behavior. With that being said, what I want to do is come back to the InDesign menu, the Edit menu on Windows. I'm going to select Preferences. And in this case, I'm going to come over and change the units and increments. By default, InDesign will use picas. And if you prefer a different unit of measurement, like inches, you can come over and select that. By not having a document open, this is a global preference you're setting for InDesign. Something else that you may consider doing is changing some of the keyboard increments. You can use keyboard shortcuts to change font sizes, and based upon these increments would ultimately dictate how significant those changes are. I generally like to change these to 1 point for baseline shift, for size and leading, and I also like to set kerning and tracking to 10. If you leave size and leading to 2 points, for example, if you use the keyboard shortcut, which is Command-Shift-I to increase the font, or Command-Shift-Comma to decrease the font, you'll be doing it based upon this unit of measurement. And 2 points, honestly, is too big for copy fitting. Those same keyboard shortcuts are available on the Windows side. It would be Control-Shift period to increase and Control-Shift-Comma to decrease the font size. Again, we'll talk about that in greater detail a little bit later on. But we can come over and click OK. And what I'd like you to do now is open up a document. It doesn't really matter which document you open. Just open up a document that you have available to you. If you downloaded our exercise files, you can open up one of those documents. Now, one thing that you may consider changing is the display performance. Again, let's come back to the InDesign menu or the Edit menu and choose Preferences. And from there, you can come down and choose Display Performance. That's going to open up the Preferences dialog box with Display Performance pre-selected. Now, one thing that you may want to do is increase the quality of vector graphics. For example, this Cafe Deli logo is a vector graphic. If I drag this to high quality, it will render a higher quality version of the graphic right within the document. The other thing that you may want to do is change the Greek type. I'm going to go ahead and click OK temporarily, and what I want to do is zoom out of the document a little bit. We can just come up to the application bar and choose something a little bit lower, like 50%. When you get to 50%, you'll notice the text turns into what's called Greek text, which is just blocks. And if you don't like that appearance, you can change that preference. Again, let's return back to the Preferences dialog box under the Display Performance category. And if we come over and change Greek type below and set this to 0 points, you can click OK. You'll notice even when the document is zoomed out significantly, you still see some representation of the text that's not a box. You can actually see characters. So those are just some changes I wanted to show you that you may want to make to your preferences inside of InDesign. At this point, we're getting pretty comfortable with the interface and some basic preferences. Now what we need to take a look at is how we can navigate through our documents.